Today we're taking a look at the new 2023 Fortis 33 by PSE. Just a reminder guys, head on over to mikesarchery.com to pick up any of our latest logo gear. We got plenty of hats and shirts as well as any gear you might need for your next adventure. Welcome back to Mike's Archery's YouTube, and today we have got the new lineup from PSE. They introduced it at the ATA show in January, and it's the new Fortis 33 here for 2023. PSE's got a full lineup of these bows. We're going to be taking a look at the 33-inch with multiple cam options in this bow. We're going to try to cover all the options, all the specs on all three different cam versions on this bow. So PSE coming at you, made in the USA as always, right down there in their factory in Tucson, Arizona. And as we look at this Fortis 33, obviously the longer axle to axle at 33 inches, we have got three cam options. Now they kept the E2 cam that they introduced last year. They also have the S2 cam available on this bow. And then they've got the new EC2 cam, which is a slightly redesigned EC cam, which they've had for several years. This one's just got a little deeper track in it, a little bit of a redesign, but same great feel. So as we look at the specs on the Fortis 33, the speeds on these bows in an E2 cam, you should expect 340 feet per second. On an S2 cam, it is also 340 feet per second. And then with the EC2 cam, you're going to see a slightly lower speed because of that smoother cam at 334 feet per second. As we mentioned, a 33 axle to axle on all three of these models. And then the brace height does vary slightly depending on the cam that you have. Now with the E2 cam, you're going to see 7 inches of brace height. With the S2 cam, you're going to have the shortest brace height at 6 3/4. And then with the EC2 cam, you're going to have a 7 1/8 inch brace height, which gives a nice variation there between those, but a really nice high brace height that we don't see out of a lot of bows these days. So overall, should be a real forgiving and well shooting bow. Now the overall cam to cam length on these bows, even though they do have a 33-inch axle to axle, it does vary slightly. Not a lot, but it's a slight variation because of the size of those cams. The E2 cam is a 39 1/8 cam to cam length. The S2 is 38 1/8. And the EC2 cam is coming to you at 38 3/4 on that cam to cam length. Now the reflex measurements on the E2 and EC2 cam are the same at 3 3/4, and then the S2 has a slightly less reflex at 3 5/8. Now the factory spec weight advertised on these bows is at 4.5 pounds, and we took them out of the box and we measured them at 5.2 pounds with a real world out of the box weight. 5 pounds on the EC2 cam. It is a little bit lighter. And then once we took the dampeners out of those bows, we got it down to 4.8 and 4.6. So getting close to what the advertised weights are, but coming in just a little bit heavier than what PSE is advertising. Now obviously some of the change there in these three cam options is going to be the draw length option. That is the biggest reason why you would possibly want to look at these different cams, other than the EC being obviously the most smooth and easiest to draw. So with the E2 cam, you're going to have a draw length variation from 28.5 on the low end out to 32.5 on the long end. So if you're that really long draw guy, you're going to have to go to that E2 cam. Now the S2 cam was designed as their shorter draw cam. It bottoms at 26 inches for you shorter draw folks, but it only tops out at 30. Now a lot of guys will look at this S2 cam if you're in that 29 or maybe even that 30 slot and you want to get the most performance, the S2 cam is going to have a few feet per second more than an E2 cam in those top slots. Now with that said, it's not something to get real excited about. You're talking about just a few feet per second here and there, and you'll see that as we give a breakdown later on with all the different grain weight eras, how those speeds stack up. But you will get the best performance out of that S2 cam on the top end. Now when we take a look at that EC2 cam, you're going to have a draw length option from 26 on the bottom end, so covering you short draw guys, and actually going all the way out to 31.5. So it's a nice midpoint on these PSEs that fit most folks. Even getting some of you longer draw guys there at 31.5. So if you're looking for the smoothest option and still needing that draw length span in there, you can get that on the EC2 cam from 26 out to 31.5. Now as usual, PSE does offer this bow in multiple poundages. You can get this bow all the way down to a 50 pound max, a 60, 70, as well as an 80 if you're that guy that's looking for a heavier bow, and we are seeing that trend. So you can get the Fortises in any poundage option that you like. Now, as PSE has changed over the years with these Evolve cams, the E2s and all those different cams, they have kept that let-off option. It's still got the 80 to 90% let-off peg that is built into the rotating module. So as you're changing that draw length, you can keep your let-off the same. And if you want to adjust it, it is just a simple adjustment with a screw on the end of that draw stop peg, and you just move it to where you want it, either 80, 85, or 90% let-off. Now, PSE also has a wide range on the weight option. If you need to back these bows down, you can take them out 10 turns. So they're not a true 10-pound increment where the bottom's 70 and the top's 80 or 60 and 70. You can probably get 15 or even a little more out of these bows as you crank them down 10 turns. So now let's take a look at some of the features on this new Fortis 33 that PSE has introduced. It does have a versatile platform with those 3 cam options. It gives you a nice option to be able to span if you want that aggressive cam in the E2 to get the best speed out of everything. If you want a really smooth, nice drawing bow that's just going to be comfortable through that draw cycle, then you're going to look at the EC2 cam. And if you happen to fall in the middle on that S2 cam, they've just got everybody covered here to get the most performance out of the cam that you choose. Now, they've also got that full draw stability system that they came up with here in the last year or so. It allows this bow to be more forgiving at full draw. And once you feel it and you shoot it, you realize that full draw stability, when you're standing there with this bow at full draw, you will feel it and you'll see it, and it's just a better feel, a better shoot, and it's more forgiving at full draw. Now, they also have a very wide stance on this bow, and most everybody has gone to a fairly wide stance, but we looked at this bow and it's at a full 3 inches on the limbs. So it appears to be one of the wider stances that we've seen out of any manufacturer. Again, creating more stability, less torque, and just a better overall feel in this bow. Now, PSE also came up with a shim system toward the end of last year with that EZ.220, the Snap Spacer System. All of the new Fortis bows have that option on it. So from a tuning standpoint, it makes the new Fortis very easy to work on. If you're needing to shim this bow to get a paper tear out of it, to get it to shoot perfectly for your form and your setup, you're able to just take this bow, pop it in a press, loosen those axle screws up, pop those shims out, keeping them even on 220 from side to side, pop in new ones, tighten everything back up. It's a much easier system than actually pulling full shims, pulling the axles out of things. Just makes it a lot easier to work on and tune on this new bow. Now, they also have the new limb dampeners with the kill shocks and the riser dampeners. It's reducing vibration by quite a bit according to their testing, a total of 28%. So you'll see it. It's the new rubber vibrations in the limbs. It's their new little shorty stabilizer there on the front that gives it a look similar to some other folks, but it is definitely changing things and taking a lot of vibration out of this bow, and you'll feel it if you shoot it. They also changed to a new grip. It's their new Traction Tech grip. We like it. It's got a great feel to it. It's got a little texture to it, but it's still thin in the hand. It's not that bare metal grip that's exceptionally thin that PSE has had over the years, but it's still a great feeling grip. Got the same geometry there. And just overall a nice feeling grip in your hand. Now, one of the other changes that PSE came with for this year is more integration. Now, they've obviously had the integration on the back for your dovetail rest, but they've kept with your QAD dovetail on the back, but they've also kept with the new Hamskea core system. So you've got a couple of integrated rest options that you can throw on this bow, and then they've also added the pick rail to the front. So if you like that system where you can bring your sights in line, they've added a nice pick rail that has some adjustment screws for height on that, and you're going to be able to use any sight on the market that is using that pick rail system. And as we see the market change and people come with more integrated options, a lot of the market is allowing you more options in sights as well as rest to be able to customize this bow and use the products that you want on them. Now, even though they do have the integrated system, all your standard sight mounting and rest mounting holes are there. So if you want to keep with your traditional sights, you've got still 2 options of settings there on your sight holes, and also a double rest hole mount there as well. So they've kept with all your traditional accessories from your stabilizers and everything, even though they've gone more integrated here. You're able to use any accessory on the market that's been around for years. On the new Fortis 33, they also kept with that triangle bracket if you're the guy that likes a 2-piece quiver or a high-mounted single quiver up high. If you find a quiver on the market or use one of PSE's new quiver systems, you're going to be able to use that triangle bracket system to put a 2-piece quiver on here, or go back with your traditional 1-piece on your sight mounting bracket. It's going to allow you to get everything in tighter, closer to the bow, especially if you're utilizing their integrated systems. They still have their quick release sling mounts in the limb pockets, so if that's something that you like, this is still available on this bow. In their tuning category, they've got the PBT still on this, that precision bus tuning with that piece in your cables. It allows you to yoke tune this bow even though it doesn't have true yokes. It just makes more tunability and just easier setup while you're setting up this bow. You still got your single string stop on the back and a locked roller guard. That's something a few years ago PSE changed, and we were glad to see it. Even though they kept with the roller guard, which keeps everything smooth through the draw cycle, they've just got that new cable rod that locks in place, keeping it stable, allowing nothing to move throughout your shot or if you're in the field. Now they offer this bow in a bunch of different colors, as PSE has done in the past. You've got 4 solid colors that you can choose from, in a black, a charcoal, a green, or a tan. And then if you want a camo color, they're keeping with the First Lite Fusion, a Mossy Oak Bottomlands, a Kuiu Verde 2.0, a Subalpine, and the Elevated 2. So a lot of great colors there, even with that throwback of the old Mossy Oak Bottomlands. We're seeing that being more popular for folks. You got a lot of options there in camos and solids to really customize this bow the way you want to see it. Now, as far as price, the new Fortis 33 is coming in at $11.99, and that is right where we're seeing everybody else's flagship bows. Even though PSE took time to release these in January at the ATA show, they kept in the same price point as all their competition. So just realize you're going to be at that $1,200 price point on pretty much anybody. So if you're looking at a PSE, they're going to be right there with all the other price points. Now from here, we're going to step back to the lane, take a few shots out of these bows, and we are going to give you a breakdown on the speeds and noise rating on all the different cam settings. We're still going to use, as we traditionally do, 29-inch draw length, 70 pound on these bows, using 90% let off. All right, so we have stepped back here to the lane with the new Fortis 33, and we're going to give you a breakdown of all the speeds on this bow. We're going to shoot all the different cam options, the E2, the S2, the EC2 cam, and give you those breakdowns all the way from 350 grain arrow out to 500 grains. As usual, we'll shoot this bow on 29-inch draw length, 70 pounds, and 90% let off. So we're going to start. This is going to be the E2 cam. That's what you're going to see me shoot. Obviously, we shot a lot of arrows and spent a lot of time getting all these numbers for you. So that's the one you're going to see me shoot, is the E2 cam. So here we go. All right, so starting with the E2 cam, what we've got with a 400 grain arrow was 297. From there, with a 350 grain arrow, this bow jumps up to 315 feet per second. And then again, 297 at 400 grains. The 450, we drop down to 281. And with a 500 grain arrow, we drop down to 263. Now to give you a breakdown in comparison, when you start shooting all these different cams, the S2 cam at 350 grains is 320. So you're getting a little better performance out of that S2 cam at 350 grains, about 5 feet per second. Now with the EC2 cam coming in as the slowest cam, which is expected because it is the smoothest of the three, we're seeing 306 feet per second out of that with a 350 grain arrow. As we go up with weight, with a 400 grain arrow, the E2 cam was 297, the S2 cam coming in at 301, being just 4 feet a second faster, and then the EC2 cam dropping down to 291. Still some great speeds for the smoothness of that cam. As you go up to a 450 grain arrow, the S2 cam got 284, coming in just 3 feet a second faster than the E2 cam, and then the EC2 cam is at 272. So again, you're seeing those trends, and they're holding pretty steady even as we weight these arrows up. As you get to the heaviest arrow that we test with 500 grains, we saw the S2 get 265, coming in just 2 feet a second faster than the E2 cam at 263, and then the EC2 cam dropping off to 260 feet per second. Again, pretty nice numbers. Not one of the fastest bows we've shot, but still putting up some great numbers there throughout the entire setup, keeping some decent efficiency as you get to those heavier arrows. So overall, all these cams performing well. It's just a matter of you picking what the feel is and the speed where you want to be as far as your draw length and things. Now, as we looked at the decibel meters, they came in very close depending on what cam you shot. The E2 cam was just a slight bit louder than the EC2 cam. It's coming in at 94.6 decibels, and the EC2 and the S2 came in at 94 decibels. So on both of those bows, They have got pretty decent noise ratings, coming in right there with what we've been seeing out of bows this year. Real quiet. You'll notice it when you shoot it. It's a good quiet hunting bow, and just overall a great package. Now from there, as we talk about the draw cycle on each one of these, the E2 is not a terrible draw cycle at all. It's still fairly smooth, but you're going to notice that hump and that buildup. When they built that E2 cam, they specifically built it for extra performance. You're going to hold peak weight 2 inches longer throughout the draw curve. You're going to feel that as you top out, hold that, and then when you drop off into the valley on the back end, you're going to feel a little more drop off than you do on the other two cams. Now the S2 cam is very dependent on where you're at in the draw length. It's still a fairly stiff cam, getting performance just like the E2 cam, but it's built for those shorter draws. So what you're going to feel is it smooths out at the top, and then in the middle it's fairly stiff coming through that draw cycle. But you got to have that to get that extra performance out of these bows. You just got to have a little more aggressive cam. I don't think it's something that most people are going to notice, you know, being a really aggressive cam or really hard to draw or anything like that. But it is certainly something that if you're not wanting the more aggressiveness and you're not worried about the speed, then you may want to look at that EC2 cam. With that deeper groove in the tracks, it's just getting a little more stability out of that cam. It's wider to fit that 220 track system for the tuning ability. But overall, that cam is super smooth. As you're coming through the draw cycle on that, it just doesn't really ever peak out on you. As you drop into the back wall of that bow, it sits in there real nice. You're not getting that big drop off into the valley. Overall, it is an exceptionally smooth cam. If you got shoulder problems or something to that effect, or you're just wanting the easiest draw cycle out there, then take a look at that EC2 cam on any of these Fortis models. Now when we take a look at the grip sits really well in the hand. You'll notice that full draw stability. Once you're at full draw, it takes a lot of the torque out of that shot. It just sits really stable, doesn't torque in your hand hardly at all, and just an overall great feel. We've liked PSE's grips in the past. Now when they added the new Traction Tech grip, it's still got a great feel to it. It's just got a little more rubber coating, a little more grip to your hand versus that bare metal finish that they've had in the past to get that thinner target style grip. Now as far as the after shot, it's exactly what we expect out of every flagship bow. It's dead in the hand, fairly vibration free, overall a fantastic feel after the shot. Doesn't want to jump out of your hand. Just a great feel throughout the entire experience. So if you're looking at some of the new PSE bows and you haven't picked up something yet, the new Fortis for 2023 is going to be a great option. And if you're looking for that longer axle to axle, or you're that longer draw length guy, the 33 is probably where you're going to want to be, just so you can get more forgiveness, more stability, and that longer axle to axle with a high brace height. It is just a great shooting machine. So check out a Fortis 33 for this year and give us a call at Mike's Archery. We'll get you set up with one.